Are you someone looking to do your first powerlifting meet, but you're a little bit scared to jump in? You don't know what things you should know and you're worried about you screwing things up? Well, in this video, we're going to go over 4 tips that you should know to have a successful first powerlifting meet. So let's get right into it. Alrighty, welcome my powerlifting people or potentially future powerlifting people. I'm going to get right into this video. We're going to go over 4 tips for you if you're looking to sign up for your first powerlifting meet. The first tip is that you want to know the basic rules of powerlifting. So you don't have to know all the in-depth rules of ins and outs of making changes and lot numbers and all that stuff like that. You just want to know the basics to be able to execute the lifts to the standards of the sport and actually get attempts in. So for example, for a squat, you need to know what depth looks like and are you actually hitting depth or not. If you're incapable of hitting depth, there's no point in signing up for your first meet. So you want to know the basic rules of performance for each of the lifts, like when it comes to depth on squat, when it comes to pausing on the bench or keeping your butt down, or when it comes to fully locking out on a deadlift. You also want to know some basic rules like, it's 60 seconds from when they call your name. You have to go out there and get in that starting position to get that initial command. And then you have to come off the platform and you have 60 seconds to turn your next attempt in. You also want to know what the weight classes are to find out what weight class you fall into, so you're correctly signing up for the correct weight class and showing up for the correct weigh-in time. So before you sign up for that first meet, you want to go look through the rule book and go look at some of the basic rules in there under the rules of performance and how a powerlifting competition flows, especially if you're someone who's going by yourself, or maybe you have a buddy helping you out who doesn't know the rules. If you have someone who's an experienced coach, then they can help you out with a lot of these basic rules and go over things with you beforehand to make sure you're executing everything to competition standards. But if you're completely by yourself, it's very important to know the rules because there's not going to be anyone else out there to help you. Tip number 2, which is connected to knowing the rules, is you need to know what equipment is allowed in your specific federation and in that specific competition. So depending on the federation, there may be different rules on the specifications or whether there are certain brands that are allowable, certain ones that are not, and also just the minimum required equipment. So like if you're competing in raw powerlifting, you still have to have your non-supportive singlet, you still have to have a t-shirt, you still have to have underwear, you still have to have socks, you still have to have shoes. And if you're going to be doing deadlift, most of them are going to make you have long socks to come all the way up to the bottom of your kneecaps for deadlift. So you need to know the rules about the minimum equipment that's required for you to actually enter and compete in a powerlifting competition, and then make sure your equipment actually meets those standards, whether it's specifications or brands or anything else, when it comes to if you want to wear wrist wraps, belt, knee sleeves, and even the singlet, which is required. The last thing you want to do, which sometimes happens to lifters, is they show up to their first meet, they show up to equipment check, they drop down their belt, and then the referee says, this belt's not allowed, you can't wear it, you're going to have to go without it. Then that changes your whole plan of what you're capable of. Some people may hit a lot less without their belt, and if you find out about it, let's say you didn't show it at equipment check, you put in your opener and you go out there on the platform, and then they tell you out on the platform you can't wear that belt. Now your opener is already in there as well, and the bar's already loaded, and now you have to try and lift that weight without that belt. So it becomes even worse if you find out you're not following some kind of rule in regards to equipment on the platform or in the warm-up room, rather than during equipment check or in the weeks leading up, if you actually read and learn what's allowable and what's not. Tip number 3 to have your first powerlifting meet be successful is regarding attempts, and you want to open up light and try and stay conservative overall. So for each of the lifts, you're going to get 3 attempts, and you can only go up in weight. So you don't want to open up too heavy and then miss it and then not be able to go down in weight, be stuck with that weight and bomb out, because then you're going to have a very disappointing first time. For a lot of people, that ends up them just leaving the sport and never coming back. You want to open up something very light that you can do no matter what. If the room's really cold, if the room's really hot, if you're not allowed to wear your belt, or maybe you didn't know where you were in the order and you did your last one up 2 minutes before you have to go out there on a platform, you have to rush up there and go do a lift, you still want to be able to execute that lift. It may be more difficult than you want, and you may be more stressed out than you want, but you can still get the lift in and stay in the meet. And then overall, it's perfectly fine to be more on the conservative side for your first meet and make attempts. It's going to set you up for success going forward. You want to build that momentum in the right direction. You want to make 9 attempts and be like, oh man, I had 5 more kilos here, had 7.5 more kilos here, I have so much more for my next meet. I'm so excited now to go back in the training, get even stronger, and do even better at my next meet. Versus you go and you miss, let's say, all your second and third attempts, you only got your openers in, and you hit way less than you thought, and you didn't like how the referees made the calls, and you were all angry or whatever like that, and then you get in an argument with your family or your significant other or something like that about the attempts and this or that, and it just leaves you sour taste, like, man, this sucked, I spent all this time and money, everything like that, all the weeks leading up to this meet, and the meet was just so terrible. Most powerlifters are only competing, let's say, 2 to 4 times a year, so you only have these few times on a platform to perform and show all the training you've done. So if you're going out to the platform your first time and you did all this training leading up to it, and then it just turns out to be a terrible meet, meet, then it just leaves you in a bad state. It leaves this bad momentum to you just possibly never competing again. So it's better to err on the side of caution and leave weight in the tank that you can use for future meets than to try and overshoot and have a bad performance or even bomb out and then just leave the sport forever. Tip number 4 for you to have a successful first powerlifting meet is to have fun and go out there and meet new people. Part of the reason why you're entering this competition is to have fun, to enjoy yourself. You know, just like any other hobby, if you go watch a movie, if you go do a mini golf or whatever like that, then you're going to have fun, whether it's with friends or by yourself. You are paying money and you're going to experience something and enjoy yourself. So it's the same thing when you're entering your powerlifting competition. You want to be in this like very rigid mindset where I have to hit all these numbers and I'm not going to talk to anyone and no one can bother me and everything like that. I have to hit these numbers, post them online and say how great I did my first powerlifting meet. You want to be there and you want to enjoy yourself. You want to, you know, say hi to the referees when you come in for weigh-ins and equipment check and talk to them, learn something from them. Maybe when you're warming up with someone, you want to maybe introduce yourself to them, find out where they're from. Maybe they train at the same gym as you, or maybe they're in a city over and you guys can maybe meet up sometime. Maybe you meet a coach, something like that, and they can help you out in the future and they can direct you to what competitions to go to next. Or maybe they can even help you load weights and figure out rack heights and those kind of things. You want to meet other people, especially at local competition. They're all going to be from that same city or maybe the same state. So it's going to be other people that you may potentially see at future meets, people that you may talk to online if you start following them on Instagram, people that you may connect with later on, like a coach or something like that, someone who may teach you then to one day become a referee or something like that. So the whole point of there is to have a good experience, to have fun, meet new people, learn new things, and see whether you actually like this going forward. So don't forget to come in there with a friendly attitude, talk to people, introduce yourself to them, learn something new from someone, and then have a fun time and successful time using all of these tips. And if you're thinking now, hey Aaron, you have me convinced, I want to do my first meet. Thanks for the tips. I want to learn a little bit more though as I'm preparing for my first meet. And what you want to do next is click right here and go to my competition basics playlist and start watching all those videos where I go down the rules of performance for each of the lifts, going over how to time your warm-ups, going around what equipment's allowed and more. So I'll catch you guys in those next videos.